So thanks for joining us, Igal.
Absolutely.
And well, first of all, I know you've been thinking about this for decades. Um, so tell us about your journey to get to this point. Like, what inspired you to want to build a house like this?
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. My wife and I started this conceptual journey. It's probably close to 20 years ago now. And we knew we wanted to eventually build our own home or build a custom home. And we knew we wanted something that wasn't your standard run-of-the-mill suburban house. So we weren't really sure what we were looking for, but we started looking, and after a couple of different concepts, we sort of stumbled onto the idea of a earth sheltered or a green roof type of structure. And that led us down a bit of a rabbit hole to eventually um, forming a relationship with a company that specializes in the structural systems for this type of house. And from there, it was a number of years of ideas and design and redesign and redesign and redesign
Yeah, true.
to eventually come to what we've now settled on as our final dream home concept.
Well, here's the thing about your style of house. So a lot of our clients will get into it like, hey, we convert that screen porch into an outdoor, into a more of a sunroom. It's like, sure, like we just have to re-permit it, whatnot. For your house, like once it's built, it's done. Like there's no doing an addition, there's no bumping out a different way because we're building this, we're pouring it with the concrete, we've got the structure, then we're burying it. So if you're gonna do anything, you're essentially gonna build another structure next to it, but you're not gonna. There's only so many directions you can go with this, and plus, we need that for egress.
Very true. Yeah, that with this style building, you are probably it's probably a good idea to have a solid vision in your mind of what you want, because once you build it, you have it.
Now, one thing that misperception about this type of structure, because I mentioned is like it's an earthen shelter, earthen house, and everyone's like, oh, earth ship. I'm like, no, it's not an earth ship. It's not a bunch of used tires stacked up and buried in some sort of ventilation system. This is a little bit better engineered than that, and it's not something that you're going to build out of parts from a junkyard. But that being said, let's pull up this model and kind of walk us through this. I know this is a new concept for most people, and one of the things about this journey is you had a journey getting to this point, but we're also going to digitally document this whole process on the construction side and talk about from a high performance building perspective, what are some of the things that we're doing to the structure that are a little bit different than say the more of the DIY type builder. All right, so it looks like you've got something from Mars on your screen. So kind of walk us through this and explain what's above ground, what's below ground, and what do we see here?
Sure. And a little bit of imagination will have to be employed here. Not strong enough in 3D modeling to be able to cover the structure over with earth as it will look in the final product. But so as you said, Matt, there's effectively the majority of the structure will end up buried under the ground. We have a sloped lot that we will excavate into and bring down to our foundation level, pour a more or less traditional style footing foundation. And then the structure of the house is rolled steel I-beams and layers of steel rebar that then gets shotcreted and to form a shell. And then from there, waterproofing layers and a protective layer, after which we do backfill the earth over the structure, so that in the final rendition, the three faces that are shown here in brick, the garage face, the front of the front entry wall of the structure, and the bedroom wall will be the only three parts of the house that remain unburied. So everything
And to
else.
kind of envision that process, a lot of people's like, I don't really understand a word you said, Matt, because I'm talking about shotcrete, structure, skins, forms, and whatnot. So I just tell them, like, it's kind of like a swimming pool. You dig out a hole for a swimming pool, you put the rebar in place. The ground acts as the form and holds up the rebar, and then you use that shotcrete. And shotcrete is basically that way of applying concrete to a form on the inside, and they kind of trowel it out, then they line it and they fill it full of water. In your case, you don't really have that benefit of the earth acting as a form. So the actual form is the steel. You're shotcreting it. So it's like an inverted swimming pool. You're shotcreting on the outside of that, and then we're adding those control layers. So it's similar process. We're just kind of going about it, and then you're burying it where because the earth is going on last, where in a swimming pool it's what what you're filling up.
Right. Yeah. And the resulting structure will be something that has a lot less of an impact on the lot, because we will be replacing the earth and then we'll be seeding it. So we'll end up with much more of a usable amount of the lot back, because you will actually be able to walk over the top of the structure.
And
So
you have
for
zero curb appeal because you can't see the front door from the street.
it will be, yes, it will be a big surprise, I think, when you come down the driveway and you make the turn in and all of a sudden there's a house there.
Like, ooh, look at that. It's gonna something from like a James Bond movie or something.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, oh, building into the side. So tell us, like, why do people want to bury their houses? I know people
Yeah, well,
sometimes bury their money, dogs bury bones, but why would you bury a house?
why not just build above ground like everybody else?
Yeah.
There's a number of reasons that we felt like this kind of a design worked well for us. First of all, again, the minimal impact on the lot, being able to replace the soil, replace the grass, not and end up with a home that, particularly in our case, since we're building something that is mostly one level and has a fairly significant footprint. It will not be just a large impermeable surface that we're placing now on what was previously an empty lot. In relation to that, we are also very fond of the idea that we will be building something fairly sustainable. Of course, in this day and age, you see a lot of marketing, a lot of building science that is aimed towards sustainable building. This is another way of approaching that. And the reason we like it is if anyone's ever gone to the beach and dug their feet into the sand, they kind of intuitively understand that the surface of that sand is much hotter in the sun
Yep.
than it is a very shallow level below. And will be, depending on which part of the house you're looking at, will be anywhere from a minimum of 2 feet below the earth up to a maximum of about 20 feet below the earth in some areas. And as you can imagine, the soil temperature year round stays fairly consistent once you get just a little bit underneath that earth. So being here in Georgia, we have very hot summers. The sun really cooks us pretty good, but we'll be able to have most of the house feel a annual temperature that is more in about the 65 to 67 degree range, meaning we'll have to heat and cool it much less, and we'll have much less impact of say UV exposure on the external surfaces, which will help reduce wear and tear on those materials and extend the life of the structure. Also, because it is steel reinforced concrete, it's not wood, so there's very little to rot. There's very little to have pests chew into
Yep.
and destroy. And from a purely aesthetic point of view, we also think it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. And one of the things I was worried about early on when we got into this is like, it took us a while to dive into it to fully understand it, get things priced out. But so where, with the garage, what was the final square footage of this model?
Garage, I believe, is a little over 850 square feet,
And then in the rest of the house, the conditioned
a
space.
little over 3,700.
So you've got that, and is that counting the second story, or is that just the footprint?
That is counting the second story.
So if you look at that and the cost of construction in Atlanta right now, this is actually either right at or a little bit below a typical house that's built above ground. So you're getting the added benefits of the energy efficiency for, we're going to definitely study these numbers more, but we don't have to pay for a roof. There's very little siding that you have to pay for. You do have windows and doors, but if you look at the number of windows and doors compared to most of our others, I was looking at the window and door package, the cost of that. I was like, oh, well, this is actually much less than the other one. So there are significant savings in areas where you're just not having to spend money on because it's not exposed.
Correct.
And so, but
And
there are some areas where you're spending a little bit more. So it kind of it weighs itself out, but you also have a house that's more energy efficient as a result of this.
you do. And,
So
of course, steel and concrete costs compared to, say, wood costs, costs fluctuate. But, the materials can be a little more, but also there are, as you said, there are cost savings. We have, once the shotcrete goes on, once the shell is in place, we're effectively dried in. So
yeah.
whereas, in a traditional home, you might have to frame it and then wait for it to get a roof on it and get everything enclosed before you can really start bringing in a lot of trades. Here, once the shell's in place, everybody can start coming in and working.
Yeah, one of the things too, like say if we're building a traditional house on this lot because it slopes from the front of the yard to the back of the yard, we still have if it'd be on a basement, we still have the slab, so that's the cost. That's the same no matter what because the slab. We'd have actually a poured foundation wall and a bunch of retaining walls. And with this design, I really like the flared look that we ended up coming up with, or actually you came up with this. We're able to avoid having unnecessary retaining walls and extra concrete by building it a certain way. So let's talk about the design of the entrances and why you ended up choosing this method. First we had early on.
Yeah, well, this did go through several revisions. In an earlier design, we had a more, I don't know if traditional is the right word, but we had a more typical a flat front face wall with retaining wall between the three sections to hold back the earth, because of course, as you say, the lot slopes and the earth wants to come downhill. In discussing and going back and forth with some of your suggestions, thinking the whole process through, we did decide ultimately that all that additional retaining wall wasn't really in keeping with the aesthetic that we were hoping to achieve, something that sits a little more gracefully on the lot and in the land. We gave the house a name, incidentally, that relates to that. We referred to it as the Toitu House, and that is a Maori word from an old proverb that refers to the full proverb translates to as man disappears from sight, the land remains, and the idea being that we wanted to be more respectful of our temporary stewardship of this property, and that the house will be here long after we are gone, the land will be here long after we are gone, and we would like to do something that works for our needs, which is a good, comfortable, safe, easy to live in home, but that is also environmentally respectful and is built in a way that is meant to be a little bit longer lasting, more durable.
Yeah, I mean that was one of the things that I learned my early on days of building, that the average house that if you're making new construction, barely could build house, is typically designed to last about 30 years. And I didn't really realize that until I was doing some consulting for this builder, and the appraiser came out, and I just looked at it, I was like, oh, it's a 30-year appraisal. I'm like, so the house is only rated to last 30 years. I was like, well, what if somebody sells the house in year 10? Is it going to fall apart in 20 years? I mean, this is just, I that just seemed kind of ridiculous. And that's why I've always been, gravitated towards high performance buildings. Not only do they perform well, but they're also designed to be more durable. And especially like with this, I mean, I'm just thinking this could easily be a 500-year plus structure. I can't see a reason for it to, especially if it's well maintained, for it not to last a long time.
Mhm.
Or if they do have to come back, in the future and make any adjustments, you've got it's very easy to fix over time. The windows and doors, they're designed. We've been using fiberglass windows and doors, which is pretty much just made out of sand. So it's the same as the glass itself. So we're building a house into the earth, but it's also made out of earth. And the concrete and steel, again, that's designed to last a long time as well. So these are things that, like, once you build it, you're not going to have to worry about really any of the finishes on the outside, and you've got very minimal finishes on the inside. For instance, the concrete floor in the main part of the house, there's not really much you have to maintain with that, because it's concrete. You don't have to keep on resanding it and whatnot. So I want to give us a tour of the inside of the house. I mean, the outside definitely looks cool.
Sure.
Um,
So,
I know it can see through the walls, but that's not how it's going to work in real life.
yes. So, well, I'll treat it as if we're just coming home. So, yeah, coming down the driveway, we'll approach the house obviously from the garage side. Um, Coming in through there, we have a wall that will lead directly into the great room. And coming around to the front entrance,
Uh,
we come in through the front entry into an open concept great room that will be a living room, dining room, kitchen, a place for a pool table. The kitchen is designed to be basically a galley kitchen with a large island, as my wife likes the idea of the kitchen being the center of the home. It is literally placed right smack in the middle, and will hopefully allow people to congregate in the kitchen as they have a tendency to like to do, and not have them be off on their own outside of this general space. We'll have a walk-in pantry off the kitchen, as well as a half bath. And to the one side will be a library slash office.
is that a barber chair?
It is actually a barber chair. And I
That's pretty cool.
do in fact have a barber chair. So this is accurate to what will be going into the house.
I
We
cut my
are,
kids' hair, so we're always just like using whatever chair, and it always sticks to us. Like, man, it'd be nice to have a barber chair. And
well, there you
look at
go.
you, you got a barber chair. About to come over and use your barber shop.
Exactly. We are kind of going for a bit of an industrial theme. If anyone's ever been a fan of the old warehouse style buildings that they convert into lofts, you will understand the aesthetic that we're hoping to achieve. Um, let's see, let me turn off the second floor real quick and we can.
And so the main part of the house is one story, but it's kind of vaulted, so it's like open air. And then when you go to
Yes.
more of the living quarters, it's a little bit higher, it looks like, and you've got two stories over there.
So these are, as I mentioned earlier, the structure is made of a skeleton of rolled steel I-beams, so it is an arched structure. And the height at top dead center for the first floor is about 16 feet. So we'll have a nice vaulted open space in the great room. The side of the house that holds the bedrooms, and that's 2 downstairs and 2 upstairs, has a 4-foot extension at the base that brings the ceiling height up to 20 feet at top dead center to give us enough space to make the upstairs bedrooms and the upstairs bathroom and living space a little more comfortable and a little more usable. So,
So kind of like a story and a half house, like we've got a main story, then you've got a pitched roof. A lot of times for the vaults, like they don't necessarily have flat roofs in there. They've got angled roofs. So in here, you're not designing flat roofs either. Just kind of going with the flow of the arches with the concrete, the
correct.
ceilings, it looks like.
And that, from an aesthetic point of view, to us is appealing. It's a little
Mhm.
less rigid. It's a little more, I don't know if you want to use the word organic for something that's made out of concrete and steel, but it has a little bit more of a flow to it. And as anyone that's, maybe studied shapes might already know, an arched shape is inherently much stronger than a box or a square shape. And that's been proven out not just in the math and in the theory, but you can actually go and see pictures of structures that have been built using these types of systems where they have the house in place, the earth already backfilled over the top of it, and 70,000 pounds worth of construction equipment parked on top of the house. So these are more than adequately strong if anyone questions whether this will hold up to all the earth that goes on top of it, and then a good rainstorm comes and weighs that down with water. They're engineered to be more than strong enough for the load that
Yeah,
they're
it's
bearing.
always amazing. Like we'll have these PVC pipes underneath the slab. Everyone's running over them. We're pouring concrete on top of it, building on top of them, and it's like, well, they're designed in such a way they're not going to get crushed just because you've got equal forces on all different sides. So really, 1,000 years from now, someone's going to be coming back and it's like, oh, cool, this is how those short humans used to live. They're going to be 10 foot at that point at the rate we're getting taller. So
Yeah, we'll see. Well,
maybe
hopefully
this
not,
is
because we do, if we go down the hallway here into the downstairs living area, we do get to 8-foot ceilings. So hopefully, hopefully not going to get to a 10-foot.
Well, I was thinking generationally aging in place in about 5 or 6
Yes.
generations. They'll take the ceilings out so they can fit in here, and
Well, there
they
you
got to
go.
raise the basketball hoop too a little bit.
You do raise a good point, though, and that is a lot of why we designed this the way we did in reference to aging in place. My wife and I, we like to say we still feel young, but the numbers don't lie. We are getting a little bit up there, and this is the house that we do intend to stay in for the rest of our lives. And so we designed it to have everything that we need to be able to access as we get older, all on one floor. With the ability to still have the additional 2 bedrooms upstairs for guests or other people staying there. But just to continue on the tour there, coming off the great room, we come down a hallway. We have to the left immediately a mechanicals room that we built in to the conditioned space, the conditioned envelope of the house, to help improve its performance. Continuing on down, you get another doorway to the stairs, going to the second floor, a small closet, and then a pair of bedrooms and a master bathroom with built-in laundry, a soaking tub, which was an absolute necessity on my wife's checklist for the build of this house, and shower. And then if we move to the upstairs, we come up into a oversized landing and sitting area, a upstairs bathroom, as well as 2 more bedrooms and a deck off of that to provide egress and also be able to step out and enjoy the nice shade that the structure will afford that deck.
But essentially,
And
this was designed so you guys can stay on the main floor. The only reason to go upstairs would just be say hi to the guests, but that's mostly guest suite up there.
correct. And we have a little bit of utility space for storage, running ductwork, what have you.
This would definitely be a fun house to play hide and seek in. I can. So, some of the other things we're going to cover in this series, because again, this is just the first video. I really appreciate that tour of the house. And thanks also for creating this amazing model. This is having 3D models on any of our projects is nice to be able to show how things look besides in just plan view or elevation view. Um, Especially something unique like this. But you kind of hinted on the HVAC system. We're going to do a separate video on that, talking about how do you design an HVAC system for a house like this, which, when you're looking at it, it's not that different than most of our other houses that are built tight. You just need to make sure you've got fresh air and you can condition the air and everyone's comfortable. Lots of air movement. But we're also going to talk about the building envelope because we want to put insulation, but not so much insulation that the earth doesn't get to do its job and keep the house cool. But what do we do on the walls that are exposed to the outside? We've got some treats for some things that may not have ever been done in Georgia before. When it comes to those exterior walls, they look like brick, but even when you get up close, you're going to think it's brick. But we're gonna trick everyone. It's going to be one of those things that pull the wool over their eyes, like, oh, it's not really brick, but it looks like brick. Uh, those are the fun things about this. Is that the goal is to make everything look authentic with newer materials that are energy efficient. It's going to last a long time, but it's also easy to maintain, and you guys can live in this, for the rest of your lives, and it's going to be a very comfortable house, low maintenance house.
And that is a big part of the goal.
And the goal is to have this done next year. So we are in the year 2024 right now, 2025. I probably have, I don't know, 10 to 20 or more videos on this project. And, really the video that I'm most excited about is the final tour of the house. So you can walk through it and say, hey, this is it. It's buried, the landscaping's in place. We have the grass or the wheat or whatever your crops are on the roof, rooftop garden. I mean, literally, this is the only house that I can tell people it's okay to have a green roof on, because you kind of have to. Where a lot of the times I'm doing wood frame construction, I'm like, I don't know. I mean, we can put something on there, but just I can only warranty it for a year. I'm not going to promise it's not going to leak unless we're doing steel frame construction in that area. So what are you most excited about on this house besides moving in?
Yeah, that's a good question. We've been thinking about this for so long now. It's hard to pick one thing. Um, I think honestly, one of the things I'm most excited about is just how solid it feels to me. And I mean that in a couple of senses. Particularly here recently, Georgia experienced a couple of pretty significant weather events with some bad storms coming through from the hurricanes coming up through Florida. And I know a number of people that I know actually asked me how we were doing on the house. As when you start facing a weather event like that, you start the realization that if you get unlucky and the storm or whatever comes through too close to your traditional home, bad things can really happen. And
Yep.
both with the steel and concrete materials being used to build the structure, and then also the additional security afforded by the earth coverage. A real bad storm could come through, trees could fall on the house, and it will still be protected. And the people inside it will still be protected. And that's become more important to me as we've gone through more of these events.
And we can also, answer the age-old question. If a tree falls on an earthen structure, can you hear it? The answer's, or feel it. The answer's like maybe, but
Yeah.
it's like it's gonna be like hitting a brick wall.
Yeah.
Like I remember I was on a conference call and the tree fell in my backyard. The whole house shook. In this case, like you may feel some of those vibrations coming through, but it's not gonna bounce up like a cartoon and go back down. Um, and there's a lot of weight to this, so it's gonna feel solid just to the weight as well.
Yeah.
sound
And
wise.
with the additional acoustic insulation from being buried, from the solidity of the materials, and from the tightness of the envelope, yeah, it will reduce a lot of even the noise as well.
So we are going to create a playlist on our YouTube channel for this, potentially have some other social media aspects of it. So can't wait to share all the information regarding the process of the house. We're probably gonna have 2 or 3 more videos just on the design. Maybe peel back some of the layers. Like this is an overall video. I appreciate you sharing this. Maybe we'll get into like the exterior wall construction. Definitely excited about the HVAC design. And we can even talk about because we have to have a septic design. So lots of design went into this. We are in the design process. And one, I guess, my favorite thing about this house is the not only just something a little bit unique, but and not necessarily my favorite thing, but one of the interesting things about this, I was really worried about submitting this as a building permit with a full set of plans, then to look at this like, what are you doing, and getting a bunch of comments back. And you're in the neck of the woods that we're building this in, they're not necessarily looking at the building plans, they're just looking at the square footage and where it's located on the lot. I can't wait to see the inspectors' faces when they show up for this. Like, all right, we didn't approve that, but we don't necessarily approve anything. Our responsibility is just to make sure it's built to code. So I can't. That's always the fun thing about doing something unique, is the response when people show up. It's like, oh, that's not exactly what I expected. It's like, oh, cool, and we'll have the camera ready for them too. So love to get the reactions. So that's gonna be my favorite part of this. Just everyone's reactions, like, oh, that's interesting. Wasn't expecting that.
I think you'll see a lot of that. I know we've had a lot of response every time we've shown this concept to people, whether they like it, love it, or hate it. It never fails to get their attention.
That is true. We'll definitely get their attention. Well, I do appreciate your time, and if you guys like this video, first of all, thanks to Igal for sharing this. And we'll get to meet more of the family later. Probably when we do some of the walkthroughs, we get to meet Ihan. But we want to teach good building science, and really the goal is with this series is not only necessarily to inspire people to think differently about building, and this is something that's different. Other people that are looking to build this type of construction, just like our other projects, we're fully documenting each phase of construction as a method of teaching our own staff. It's like, hey, if we do this again, here's the manual on how to do it. And we're sharing it for free to the world so everyone else can look at it. I was like, okay, that's how Matt and his team worked through that detail, because there are some challenging details on it. As you can see, we're gonna have to get a special miter saw that can cut radiuses. So that should be interesting. The framers should love that. And especially how do materials transition, how do we keep it energy efficient, but more importantly, how do you design this where you don't have to come back and deal with some of these systems later on. So the things we're putting into this house are going to last a long time. Well, thanks again, Igal. Thanks for giving us this tour of this amazing house, and we look forward to breaking ground next month.
Thank you, Matt. We're looking forward to it as well.
Okay. All right. Have a good one.
You too.
Hey, many thanks to Igal for sharing his time and going through this model, and also choosing us as his contractor. But really the reason that we're creating these videos is for you. We want you to be inspired by what we're creating here. And also we want this to be interactive. So we decided to post all of our content on social media where you can leave comments, you can leave likes, and you can share and whatnot. So if you want to share this on your site to inspire your clients, or if there's a contractor that you're working with, it's like, hey, check out this video, I want to do something like that, definitely share our content with them. Everything is open for that. But most importantly, if you have a question about how this works, we've seen several other videos like this being built. This is more promoted to be like more of a DIY type thing. As a contractor, I would not necessarily consider this a DIY type project. It's very complicated, but we're going to be going through the whole process, showing some of the engineering that's behind this, and also some of the things that we're doing to kind of tweak the design and make it a little bit better, because that's our style. We like to make things iteratively better as we're working through this. So leave a comment below if you have a good question. We might even make a whole nother video for that. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, and see you guys next time.